Ahoy, and welcome to the Integrate This EdTech Podcast. Today, we're very excited to have joining us Dave Burgess, New York Times bestselling author of Teach Like a Pirate and president of Dave Burgess Consulting Incorporated. And Dave has a very long history and been in the education space for a long time. And so we want to just kind of kick things off right from maybe, Dave, if you could take us kind of to the origin story of what things were you doing maybe before Teach Like a Pirate? And then what was the moment that you realized Teach Like a Pirate needed to exist?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thanks so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. So I was kind of a little late to the game as far as teaching. I kicked around. I was a psychology major in college and was kicked around, tried a bunch of different things, and was kind of lost finding my way. And then I applied actually for a high school basketball coaching job. So I always tell people coaching was my gateway drug into education. So I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Saw this coaching job. I've been a basketball player my whole life. Got hired as a basketball coach at the school, which I eventually taught at. Loved working with the kids so much. Went back to night school and got a teacher credential. So when I got hired, I didn't even have a teacher credential. But I loved working with the kids so much. I'm like, I want to do this all day. And went back night school, got a teacher credential, got hired at the same school. And that was kind of the kickoff to my journey in teaching. Eventually got so obsessed with the teaching part of it that I left the coaching behind and just like focused in on the classroom. And so that was kind of where it all started. So coaching is my start.
And so when was it exactly that you had the idea for Teach Like a Pirate?
So I had been teaching for several years. And then one day my department chair came and he met me for lunch. And I can remember it so perfectly. He walked in and he said, you know what? I just got put on the professional development committee for the district. And I thought to myself, how cool would it be if you put together a workshop based on some of those crazy things you're doing in your room that nobody understands? And there was like a summer institute that the district was holding. And then he stopped. He said, but you know what? The more I think about it, I'm not sure that you can. Like, I think that your success in the classroom is kind of personality driven. I'm not sure it's something you can teach other people. And he kind of moved on. And I got upset by that. I'm like, hey, sign me up to do one of those workshops. So I signed up to do a full day workshop for the peers in my district. I was not smart. I did not choose a 1 hour session. I signed up for a full day workshop for the peers in my district. And I drove away from that meeting going like, oh my God, what have I just done? I don't have a workshop. I don't have any of this written down. I don't have it organized in any fashion. And so I got relentless about writing down everything I do in my classroom that I thought was successful. But that wasn't good enough because that's what I do. And I had to take a step back and try to figure out like, where do these ideas come from? And every time I traced back, it always came back to a question. It was the kind of question that I was asking about my lessons that other people weren't asking about their lessons. So I began to compile the questions one after another. And so eventually I had like 170 of them. And it hit me, questions are the key to creativity. Like if you want to change a teacher's classroom, like change the questions they're asking when they're designing their lessons and thinking about what their pedagogy and all that, and you could change their whole class. And that was kind of the start of it. And then the other thing that happened is I knew I wanted to have a theme. I knew I wanted to be able to model and demonstrate what I do in my classroom in the workshop. Like I wanted teachers to feel what it was like to be drawn in by these ideas. Like, you know, when you go to like a workshop and a teacher is telling you all this stuff about maybe like student engagement, and it's like the least engaging thing you've ever seen. Their presentation of how to be engaging is like the least engaging thing you've ever seen in your life, right? Like that's always seemed ridiculous to me. Like if I'm going to be the engagement guy, like it's a lot of pressure. If you write up a workshop description that says you're going to teach teachers how to create an outrageously creative lesson that's going to like have kids knocking down the walls to get in, like you better be able to give a pretty engaging workshop, right? Like, and so I want to have a theme, and pirates appeal to me because pirates are unconventional. They're willing to reject the status quo. They're willing to sail into uncharted waters with no guarantee of success. They're risk takers, rebels, and mavericks. And so I wanted to embrace that spirit of being a pirate, right? And then pirates are also known for having hooks. So it's a play on words. Like this is all about how you can hook students and draw them almost magically or magnetically into what you're doing in your rooms, right? And then I'm abnormally obsessed with acronyms, as many educators are. So, I mean, the first thing I did is I took a page, I had to turn a page sideways by PIRAT down the page, and I tried to generate an acronym. I knew I wanted to talk about passion and enthusiasm. They're the P and the E. We're sitting at the beginning and the ends of the word, like the cornerstones of it. And then I knew I wanted to talk about building rapport with kids. This started being the heart of teaching. there the R was sitting in the center. And so I never looked back. I was like, hit my head. That's my dog thinking that I just knocked on the door. That's the problem when you have a bald head. It sounds like you're knocking on something. All right. So I never looked back. I did the workshop that summer for my kids, and then, for the peers in my district, excuse me. And then I began to go anywhere where anyone would listen to me talk about these ideas.
And so it sounds like it's kind of like the pirate life found you, or did you find the pirate life? Or is it just like it just mutually kind of?
It was a perfect balance of both.
Yeah. Hey, I get a lot of feeling of listening to you talk, and it reminds me of like Mike Leach, the old football coach. He passed away, I think, a couple of years ago. But talked about living a pirate life even outside of his coaching world, and I'm just kind of like drawing some comparisons there to that. But okay, I'm going to ask you to step back here for a minute, right? Take off the hook, take off the bandana or the eye patch or whatever, right? And yeah, right, exactly. Cover that up. What for someone not accustomed to the pirate sort of life, what I guess what am I kind of going here? Like explain what you mean here by adding, your passion and your rapport and your enthusiasm to a teacher who's a little bit more unfamiliar with it, maybe not a pirate themselves.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I always tell people is sometimes people will push back, for example, on my focus on student engagement. And I always tell them, hey, listen, it doesn't matter what you say if nobody's listening. Like don't tell me it doesn't come back to student engagement. Student engagement, like you can be the greatest teacher in the world. You can know everything about your content. You can be, in fact, I know teachers who they know so much about their content. It's like unbelievable, right? But who cares how much you know about your content? It's what students walk away with, what skills they walk away with, what content knowledge they walk away with. And so if you can't transmit that, then it doesn't matter. And so Carlos Santana said this line that I love. He said, enthusiasm is the most contagious thing in the world. The songs become incidental. What people receive is your joy. And as an educator, I feel it's the same thing. It's the lessons become incidental. What students receive is our joy, our that sense that they get that we love doing what we're doing. We love being there with them. We enjoy teaching. We want them to be we're blessed to have them as a part of our life. And when kids feel that, it changes everything about a classroom culture. And so, and that's the kind of thing that can't be faked. And so it's always about trying to bring in this passion and this sense. Like a teacher will say to me, like, oh no, I hit my head again. I hope the dog's better. So the teacher will say, like, I just can't understand. Like, my kids are just not into the Spanish-American War. Like, it's just I'm not going to seem to get them focused on this thing and all that. And I'm looking at them, I'm thinking to themselves, like, I wouldn't be interested in the Spanish-American War in your class either. Like, look at look at the kind of enthusiasm and charisma that you're generating. Like, just tell me about this. I know I know that your lesson probably isn't engaging, right? And so, but the passion can come from different things. Here's the deep, dark secret about education. We know we're supposed to be passionate, but we're not passionate necessarily about everything that we teach. That's one of the deep, dark secrets that I talk about in Teach Like a Pirate. So how can you bring passion on days when you're not passionate about your particular content area, right? And so I broke it into 3 categories, right? So there's your content passion. That's fine. You might have some passion around that, but then there's other areas of passion too, like your professional passions. What is it? Not about your content. What is it about just being an educator that you're passionate about? And how can you tap into that? Okay. So really getting educators to intentionally focus on what are their professional passions, embracing that mightier purpose of being an educator and being a life changer in the role in the life, having that life-changing role in the life of kids, right? So your professional passions. And then the third category of passion that I talk about is your personal passions. What is it that you're passionate about completely outside of your profession? And is there any way that you can tie some of those things into what you do as well? And so some teachers have this thing where, like, hey, listen, I have a line that I draw right here. Here's my personal passion. Here's my professional passion, right? I do my personal life and my professional life. And I do not like to mix the two, right? And I think that's a mistake. What's unique about you, your particular strengths and talents, your voice that you add to your classroom is what makes you most powerful and effective with students. And so being able to add that personal voice and tying into those professional passions and then weaving it together with some of that content passion that hopefully you have for some of the stuff that you're teaching. When you can combine all three of those areas together, that's when you really become relentless and uncompromising in the pursuit of excellence and greatness.
Yeah, I've always kind of thought about it here, and I don't know if you would agree with this as well, but when I was in the classroom, I always kind of thought that I had, okay, there's the Jeremy that my students know, and it's me, right? But there's a Jeremy that my friends outside of the school see, and it's a totally different me, right? And yeah. I found when I was really connecting very well, I could be a little bit more goofy. I could, show a different side of myself to kids, but did it come off as maybe less authentic to my peers who are also my friends who are peering in from outside that classroom door and wondering what's going on in that classroom? Did you find similar things too? Like, did you get a lot of pushback from some of your own colleagues down the hallway when you start trying some of these different ideas and you're showing the things? And I'm guessing students are leaving your classroom, walking down the hall into another classroom that doesn't have that same level of engagement. And are you getting any blowback from that?
Yeah, there for sure. And so, first of all, to go back to the other thing, I'm trying to bring more of myself to work every day. Hey, we're at work like too high of a percentage of our lives to unplug ourselves when we walk through the doors of the building, right? So I want students to graduate not just knowing my curriculum. I want them to graduate knowing me as well. That's part of building rapport and relationships with kids, right? And so, but for sure, this is a thing that I always talk to, especially new teachers struggle with this. And I'll tell them, they'll be upset about something that a colleague said about their class, right? And this is a very sad thing to have to say, but it's the truth. It's like, listen, if you come onto a school campus and you design a class that's wildly engaging, that kids love and are talking about and buzzing about, and the kids are like excited to be in your room, that's not going to make everybody on your campus happy. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's just the truth of the matter. And they're going to seek reasons for why your class is popular with students. And they're not going to be self-reflective reasons, right? They're going to be, they're going to look for, he's just over there playing games and doing magic tricks, or he's just having fun over there. Like we're trying to do rigorous real work over here. And he's just having fun over there. And they try to set up this false dichotomy on you. People will do this all the time. They try to set up this false dichotomy that either your class is about learning or your class is about fun. Not only can those things go together, they go better together. I call it the Reese's effect. They go better together, right? And so, but there's a lot of people that will say, if your kids are having a blast and having fun and buzzing and talking about that, it must not be serious stuff going on there. And so, yeah, you have to kind of inoculate new teachers sometimes for the fact that there might be some teachers on their campus that don't like the fact that kids like their class.
And so can we talk a little bit just about a couple different pieces of engaging lessons? Like one of the things that you talk about is hooks that pull students in like a magnet. If you're thinking about a teacher that, and maybe you've worked with some in trainings or things like that, but what's one thing that someone who's very adverse to this idea, maybe they're going to give this a try. What's one hook that they could try tomorrow that doesn't really require much of them, but gets them thinking about a different way of doing things?
Yeah, well, so I'll give you an example is what are you saying today that gets them excited about coming tomorrow? What are you saying this week, which is building up what's going to happen next week? And so when you go to the movies these days, you don't even see the movie for 20 minutes. What do you see? Previews and trailers. Yep. Do you know why? Because they work. They make people want to see what's coming out. Right? Well, I work hard to make kids want to see my class. I'm building up lessons. I'm building up my lunar landing and my 60s party, things like that from the first week of school. I'm talking about that lunar landing. I'm talking about that 60s party, right? And I'm building up this mystery buzz anticipation for different things, right? This in Teach Like a Pirate world, we call this preheating the grill. And I always tell people, listen, I don't put my steak down on a cold grill. I preheat my grill. And because when you drop your steak on a cold grill, nothing happens. But when you drop your steak on a preheated grill, what happens? It sizzles. Well, I want my content to sizzle when I drop it. So I'm always preheating the grill, but on mystery, curiosity, buzz, and anticipation. So like what happens today when they're leaving the room that gets them like maybe a sense of anticipation, buzz, mystery around what's going to happen tomorrow. Or when they leave on Friday, what gets them excited about, like, I can't wait to see what's going to happen Monday. Remember when he said this was going to happen like this? I call that sometimes like the teaser hook or the promotion hook. So it's like you're trying to create sort of a movie trailer kind of preview kind of thing that's going to get them pumped up about coming in. What do they see when they walk in the room? What's shining on your screen? What's written on your board that creates a little mystery, a little anticipation, a little buzz to it, right? And so there's all these kind of just little very small things that don't take a lot of time, but it just kind of transforms the how we look at what we're doing. I look at teaching as a triple Venn diagram. There are 3 interlocking circles, and we have to have all 3 to be our most powerful. One of those circles I label as content. We have to have that circle, or we're just entertainers and babysitters. Like that's got to be there, right? But there's lots of ways to learn your content. There's professional development about content. There's books you can read about content. You can go online, learn your content. There's lots of ways you can learn your content. Then there's a second circle that interlocks with that. I call it techniques and methods. And we have a whole toolbox as educators of techniques and methods that we've gotten from our credential programs, from trainings in districts, our colleagues, and lots of books have been written about the techniques and methods to teach. But then there's a third circle that a lot of people forget about, right? So yeah, you know your content. You got all these techniques and methods. But now, the third circle I label as presentation. So you know your content now. You have all these techniques and methods, but now how are you going to present it in such a way that it's relevant for kids? How are you going to present it in such a way that it's engaging for them? How are you going to present it in such a way that it does draw them almost magically or magically? That's the third circle of Teach Like a Pirate, right? And so that's what Teach Like a Pirate is focusing on. Like some people will say, criticism to Teach Like a Pirate. Here's a big one. It's very teacher centric. Like it's about like what teachers are doing in class action as opposed to like what students are doing in class. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not trying to write the encyclopedia of teaching. This isn't like the teaching Bible. This isn't everything. This is a book about what can you do as a teacher to be more engaging in your classroom, and why is that important, and how can you tap into all these different things, right? And so that's always something that's annoyed me. It's like all of a sudden my book has to be about everything. Like how come people say, how come you don't have more ed tech in your book? I always tell them the same thing. Very simple. I wasn't very good at it. Like why I couldn't write from an authentic place about educational technology because I wasn't very good at it. Right. And so I wanted everything in my book to be authentic and something that I could write about. Like I did this in class. It works with kids. I can guarantee you. And so, and that's kind of the transitional moment for me into the publishing is like, okay, are you going to write Teach Like a Pirate Part 2? No, I already wrote my book. I wrote my manifesto. I told you about all the stuff I do in my classroom I think is successful with kids, but that's not the full story. So how can I empower some other people to share their stories and the other parts of education, which I also think are important, right? And so that's kind of for me, was the transition to the publishing.
So if you look at so let's just take like a lecture lesson, right? So
Mm-hmm.
let's say the teacher they know their like those few circles that you mentioned, right? They know their content really well. They know how, what pedagogy looks like, but they're at the front of the room. They've got their Google slideshow and its presentation on whatever lesson it happens to be, right? How do you help a teacher that wants to change that into kind of a pirate-worthy lesson, right? How do you move from standing in front of the classroom, kind of like regurgitating the facts on the slide, to really engaging in the content and pulling out the very interesting pieces like you mentioned? It sounds like you think about all those interesting pieces a lot because you know that those are going to be the hooks that pull kids in. So what does it look like to shift that over?
Yeah, so like most teachers' problem is not their content knowledge, right? Like I even said, this is like a crazy thing that I said in the book, but this is what I actually wrote this in the book. I said, right before I did there's 30 presentational hooks in the book, right? And before I gave the presentational hooks, I said, listen, I'm assuming that you know your content. If you don't know your content, put this book down right now and go look at that, like go do that. Like this is after the content, right? So like, again, I'm not trying to cheat the content. Like I actually said that in the book. If you don't know your content, you have the wrong book. Put this book down and go learn something about what you're teaching, right? Now you know your content. You've already been through a credential program. You've been through all these conferences and trainings. Now let's add in hooks. Now let's accessorize your lesson. Now, and to go back to the barbecue, the preheating the grill thing, the same thing. Like if I came out with a raw steak on your plate, and that was all that was on the plate, you wouldn't be very happy with me, right? And so the first thing that would be the problem is that it's uncooked. It's not edible for you because it's uncooked. Why? I never turned on the propane. I never brought any heat to it, right? So the same thing is true of content. You could have the finest content in the world, but it's still not edible unless you turn on the propane, unless you have a little bit of heat and energy. So it's about your personal charisma and energy that you're presenting in front of class. Don't expect kids to be excited about something that you're not excited about. Don't get kids. You shouldn't expect kids to be all pumped up to want to learn when you're clearly not pumped up to teach it, right? And so it's about that charisma and energy that you're bringing. And then what else do you have when you get served a meal? Not only is it cooked, but also it's been seasoned, and there's marinade, and there's side dishes, beverages, and desserts. So what are the elements around your lesson that add that richness? How are you incorporating music into this, right? How are you incorporating the arts? Like music and art, that's not something for kids to only do when they're over in this part of the building over here or during this hour of the day. Things like music and art, when they're woven together with your curriculum, helps bring stuff alive. And so what are you doing to create? How are you adding that project? How are you adding that, what are you saying the day before to make them, when they're coming in? What props have you incorporated into this lesson? What have you chosen about this lesson that maybe it ties into what the kids are interested in? Like I was asking these questions, like what are kids into outside of school? How can I use that inside of school, right? And so there's all these questions around these 30 categories of hooks that you can ask, that you can start to accessorize and build and add in all these different things to the lesson. And so that's like a whole process that teachers go through when they go through the Teach Like a Pirate system, is they learn how to ask these questions of their lessons.
We're on a very, David and I come into this space as technology integration. And so that EdTech piece is pretty forward in a lot of our thinking and the things that we do. But it is really nice to listen to you talk about, how EdTech is not necessarily the focus of your book, but maybe can be used to help accelerate some of those moments. Do you have any examples of moments where, perhaps even though technology is definitely not the focus, you still start with that objective, you're still adding good pedagogy, you're adding that motivation, that hook. But what are some things that maybe EdTech could do to help amplify what it is that you're doing?
Well, so for me, the thing that pops out right away is the using EdTech as allowing them to be creators, right? And so for me, that would be I'm using, markers and different things. They're getting together and they're making non-linguistic representations of things that I've talked about and all that kind of stuff. But I want them getting together, collaborating, talking, and creating. And one of the things I say is I'm not trying to put better Trivial Pursuit players in the world. Like I want kids that can go out and do stuff, right? I want makers, not memorizers, creators, not consumers. And technology in the hands of kids where they're using it as creation tools is what I would be focused on. Is yes, you can use it as a presentational tool as an educator, but more importantly, I would be trying to put it in the hands of kids and allow them to be creating and making with the technology. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I would focus on.
And I think part of that, I think it makes you called it your book, your manifesto, but the main tenets here that we're talking about, the acronym, right, seems to be timeless. Right. That Teach Like a Pirate is what, maybe 13, 14 years old since it was published.
Yeah, I started talking about it in 2005, doing workshops, and then the book didn't come out until 2012, which is now still like 13 years. I mean, it's been a long time, but I think it's based on some evergreen principles, and those evergreen principles, there's kind of basically three. One, it's based on student engagement. It's never going away. It's always going to be evergreen. Two, it's based on creativity. which we're always going to need creativity. And then the third thing is it's based on that passion piece and embracing kind of that mightier purpose of being a life changer as an educator and how to tap into that and how to overcome obstacles in the pursuit of that. And like, what is it that stifles you as a creator, and trying to learn how to like knock those obstacles down. And so like, there's a whole section in there about like, here are the things that are going to hold you back. Like, I know that I got you excited about this stuff, but here are the things that are going to hold you back. And then I try to knock those down one by one as well. And so I think it does have an evergreen feel. And then the other piece that makes it evergreen, by the way, is the fact that it's based on questions. And so here's the thing with this. If I gave all the answers in the book, then it would rapidly become irrelevant because the world has changed, right? But it's the questions that is the whole centerpiece of the book, are the questions. And now when you were asking those questions in 2012, when the book came out, you might have a set of answers. Now you're asking that same question, but now we're like in the age of AI. So all of a sudden now your answer might incorporate something that has to do with AI, or it might have to incorporate something that has to whatever the latest social media platform is. You know, if I would have said, make sure you do this with Facebook, maybe it would have been irrelevant, right? But now it doesn't matter what year you ask the question, you're going to be able to get an answer based on where you are and where the like society is at the moment.
It's really interesting here. I love your phrasing of them as evergreen. And then you tie in this AI piece to it. So those evergreen things that you had mentioned, right, are all things to me that AI as a teacher can't replicate. That is still why probably the most important thing for the student in that classroom is to have a teacher that's going to be there and be their, their guide, their assistant, their mentor, their teacher through that learning journey, through that learning process, and those evergreen things that are part of that AI can't do.
Yeah, there's so many things that, first of all, when I think back of like what I used to do is I used to brainstorm on my own, or try to get people to collaborate with me and brainstorm like around some of these questions, all that. Like, well, now like AI is the greatest brainstormer in the world. It never gets tired. It's there whenever you want it. It will iterate as many times as you want. And so now, like if I have a question in the book about like using, like one of the hooks is the kinesthetic hook, movement. And I can just tell people right away, let's start by this. We don't have kids moving enough in class. We need to get them up and moving more as part of their lesson. All right. So maybe you have a lesson and I'm thinking like, okay, how can I get kids up and out of their seat during this lesson? Well, that's a question you ask AI now. And AI, AI will give you as many iterations of that as you want. You're like, no. It needs to be, I need it to be something that happens within this amount of time. And like you can give it time constraints. You could give it, could it be inside the classroom, outside, whatever it might be. Now you have the greatest brainstormer in the history of the world that will never get tired of working on your lessons with you. And like, that's one of the opportunities of like AI for teachers, I think. But like you said, there's lots of things that AI can't do. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. You know what AI can't do? AI can't realize when that student in the third row said something that isn't a part of the lesson, but you as a professional educator realize, oh, wait a second. What that kid just said right there is way more important than the lesson. Let's go down this rabbit hole and take advantage of this teachable moment. And like the lesson can wait, because this right here, the kids are like, you could see people look on kids' face when that kid said that, and people were interested in that. And everyone's like looking up at you and going like, oh, wow, what is he going to say about this? And you say, the professional educator can say like, this lesson means nothing compared to what that kid just said. Let's explore this. Like that, AI is never going to do that.
So, Dave, can you talk a little bit about what it is that helps to create rapport, or the culture that, the things that you're mentioning, kids would come to your class and know that, they're going to experience something that is a culture that every day they come and they know what you're going to bring to the table, right? So can you share a moment where you knew that your classroom had become more than just a place to get a grade or to sit through class for 45 minutes until I move on to the next one?
Yeah, I have a slide in my breakout workshop that shows a picture of the kids doing this crazy thing in class. they're reenacting. It's actually what it is reenacting Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic, and the desks are turned upside down, so they're in their desks like they have planes with little the legs of the chair sticking up, so they have throttles and levers, and they have these flight goggles on that they've created, again, trying to have there be creative output as many lessons as possible. They've created their flight goggles and all this kind of stuff like this, and we're reenacting this flight. And I show them the picture, right? And there's 3 people standing against at the door in the back, and I say, "Who do you think those people are?" And the most common guesses are, that's admin watching, observing your lesson. No, those must be kids who didn't want to participate, or there weren't enough desks. No. Then they say, teachers, observing, learning from your class. No. Who are those people? And I say, you know who those people are? Those are kids from other classes on bathroom passes. And so I said, multiple times for class, I have to excuse out the bathroom pass people, because and I say, if you use these ideas, you can create a class that not only has your kids knocking down the walls to get in, you can build a class where you're going to have to put locks on your doors to keep the other kids out. People, they get a text from their friends and you got to get over to Burgess's class right now. You should see what we're doing. And next thing you know, I have 10 people sitting on the counter from other classes watching, and I have to send them back to their class. And then the other thing that would happen is some of these big giant lessons, like the lunar landing lesson and things like that, where I would have kids who graduated try to come back. I was hey, can I come to that? They would see that I was doing the lunar landing, and they would try to get back on campus and come back and go through the lesson again. I'm okay, this is working.
Yeah, I want to pivot here a little bit from the classroom, right, to some of the professional development work that you have done. And I think for me, listening to you talk, I can hear how these strategies are going to be ultra engaging for students. But now, in the PD realm, right? Your students are teachers. Is there a different way you have to approach the pedagogy and the andragogy with adult learners? And, can you bring that same level of pirate enthusiasm as you do to students to adults?
I think it's essential to. And I'm not saying that I'm treating adults like kids. I'm treating adults like humans who have the same buttons of engagement. And so a lot of these things are not things which are about a particular content area or even an age. It's human nature. If I bring out a box and tease the fact that there's something inside this box that's engaging, but I'm not showing you what's inside the box, and build it up and build it up. And when I open that box, when I finally pull it out, all eyes are going to be right there. It's human nature. Okay. And so a lot of the hooks from Teach Like a Pirate are based on things that are just human nature. And so they work on adults, they work on kids, and it works on any age. So that's one thing I would say. But then when I'm giving professional development, I am trying to hit an even split. Intentionally, I'm trying to hit a very even split. 50% of the time, you might feel like you're listening to a motivational speaker, like a Zig Ziglar or something like this, or a football coach getting ready for his team to come out from halftime down a touchdown, right? Where you're I'm ready to knock down a wall right now after listening to this guy, right? So 50% of the time, I'm trying to just get you really pumped up about education and about teaching and what your role is in the life of kids. And 50% of the time, I am literally showing you what I do in my classroom and modeling it as if you are the students, so that you can feel what it was like to get drawn in by that, right? Showing you the lesson hook and having you sense oh, okay, wait a second. I get it now. That brought me in. That's going to crush in my high school classroom or my middle school classroom, because I just got pulled in by that, right? And so I want people to walk away with 2 things. I want them to be with the real practical things that they can do, but then also fired up enough and excited enough to actually go through the trouble and the risk of trying it, right? And so it's kind of that 50-50 split. And I do not apologize for the fact that I also think that professional development should be entertaining. If you're going to ask teachers to sit in a room for 3, 5, 6, whatever, how many hours, you should not, just like students, we shouldn't be boring them. It should not be pulling teeth or going to the dentist office. I absolutely And while I'm teaching these ideas and these strategies, it's also a show. It's 100%. I'm also doing a show, and I'm trying to entertain you and make you joyful at being there. Just like with my students, I want my students to feel joyful about being in my class.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen that play out. In fact, I was presenting at a conference on Friday. So we're recording this on a Monday, so just a few days ago. And I ate lunch with a teacher that had taught in the same building as I did back in the day. And he had since moved on to another district, but we happened to be in the same place. And he said to me, Jeremy, I just went to this session. The guy was super intelligent, super smart, and knew his, could explain things incredibly well. But he said, people just sat there for a whole hour. Nobody got up, nobody moved around. And it was basically one-way stuff. Granted, it was great information, but he said, my brain was shutting off after about 20 minutes. And he said, I don't really remember anything that happened after that. So when you try to set up, your PD sessions, I don't know if you want to think of it as a specific example or just generally, how do you try to balance it so that you're hitting those 50% that you talked about?
I mean, it's extraordinarily intentional. Like I'm coming out, I'm hooking them with something that's really engaging right from the very first thing I do is drawing them in. There's cheering going on. We have a spectator up on the stage, and it's like a magic related kind of thing that I'm doing, right? And then going straight from that without any real like transitional period straight into the teaching part of it. It's this thing. It's the thing with, if anyone's ever seen me speak, it's the thing with the cups and keys and a lock, right? And at the end, I have the key in my hand and the lock in my hand. They just have this magical experience, and people are cheering about it. And then I'm saying, and then right away, with no transition, I'm like, that's like a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. What is the key to unlock? And I have the key and lock right there. Like, what is the key to unlock this thing called student engagement? And a lot of people talk about wanting to have attention in the classroom, like almost like it's some sort of currency. Like I want my students to pay attention. But like we know there's lots of ways you can get attention. Like you can use behavior management techniques to get attention. That's not what we're after. You can use intimidation to get attention. Like we all know we have walked by completely silent classrooms before. And it's not necessarily because there were engaged students inside. It's because there was a tyrant in the front of the room. That's not what we're after either. And then I hold this whole thing about like when you reach this deeper level of engagement, like behavior management, all that can slide in the background because an engaged student is rarely a behavior problem. So like forget the behavior management workshop. Let's just have more engaging workshops, right? Or more engaging lessons. And so it kind of like right away, it goes from this magic trick with audience interaction and a participant right into this point about student engagement being so critical and key to education. So it's just like that. It goes back and forth, boom, 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 boom. And like I said, I literally, even in a keynote space, 1,000 people on a stage, I do pieces of my lessons. I actually teach them like the separation, like the three branches of the U.S. government and the separation. I do that part of my lesson for them. And then I stop and say, okay, so like now let's talk about like why that worked. And we go back and I go through all the different principles that I used during that. And then I'll do another lesson piece and then I come back and then teach them directly about what it was that drew people in for that. So it's super, super intentional.
So that's a good transition to talk just a bit about, so you have Dave Burgess Consulting. Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit about how that got started? You've mentioned quite a few things here just about like, you want professional development to be good. So, you have the publishing and the PD. So can you talk a little bit about what your goals are with Dave Burgess Consulting ultimately to influence other educators around the world?
Yeah, so I mean, that's what I'm most excited about. Now, of course, I'm still excited, as you can tell, about my message, but really the primary focus right now is amplifying the voices of other educators and really finding people that are doing cool and amazing stuff in the world and helping them spread their messages. And again, it goes back to that whole idea. Like I didn't try to write the encyclopedia teaching. I know I didn't tell the whole story. There's lots of other people doing amazing stuff. And how can I use my platform, my skill set, and to help them spread their messages? And so, like for example, with the educational technology, Matt Miller wrote a whole book for me called Tech Like a Pirate about how he took one quote from my book, which is one of the key quotes of the book. Don't just teach a lesson, create an experience. Lessons are easily forgotten, but experiences live forever. Like that's how I say it in the book. And then he based a whole book about like, how can you create experiences using technology, right? And I have other people who have done EdTech books on me and different subjects, all that kind of stuff like that. So for me, the real focus now has been in, rather than doubling down and keep trying to write myself and how can I say that a different way? Like, I'm not going to teach like a buccaneer, or anything like that. Or I'm not going to just keep creating different things like that and say the same message. I'm really focused in on finding other people doing amazing stuff and helping them spread their messages. And that's been Dave Burgess Consulting. And it's been super fun, not only because it's like, I feel like it makes an impact, but look at all these cool people I get to work with too. So it's been a great thing.
You know, as I'm sitting here in my office at my desk, and I'm looking up at a bookshelf that I have up above my computer, I see several different Dave Burgess publishing books. You've had an amazing, I don't know, I could point out a couple of them. I have one from John Spencer and AJ Giuliani. I have one from Joy Kerr. I've got one from Katie Martin. And a couple of others I think that are up there too. I just can't read the names. My eyes aren't getting as good. And what's that?
Yeah.
Becky Keene as well.
Yeah. And Becky Keene. Actually, I have that on my
AI optimism.
Yeah.
You know, like, what's it like to work with some of these emerging, you know, people that have this idea and they just need a promoter. They need a big cheerleader that can be in their corner and, you know, help bring their ideas, their vision onto the pages of a published piece of work.
It's absolutely incredible. I mean, these people that you mentioned and many more, they're amazing, right? They're doing incredible work. And what we're really focused on is allowing them to tell their message in the way that they want to tell it. And we always, again, I use that word manifesto with my thing. That's what every single author that works for DBC, we always tell them the same thing, like, write your manifesto. Like if you could give a TED talk next week, this would be your TED talk. Like, that's what we want. If you could give a keynote at the biggest conference in the nation, like if you could give a keynote at ISTE, like this would be your keynote. Like, this is the kind of thing that after you're done speaking, you would just want to like slam the mic down and break it, because who the heck is going to step on the stage after what you just said? You just crushed it. And the next speaker is peeking behind the curtain going like, I don't even want to go out. I don't even want to follow that, right? But then here's the problem. That same person that could be so passionate about their message, they'll sit down on a computer and now all of a sudden they feel they have to be very professional, formal, academic, because a book is so serious, right? And to us, the two-dimensional written page of a book, it already sucks out all that intonation and inflection and things like that. So you have to, as a writer, go almost over the top to bring that same sort of passion and impact into it, right? And so we say, like, you know, don't shave off the rough edges for us. Say this just as strongly as you want to say it. Don't worry if it offends somebody, because like if it offends them, it's not for them. Like, write the book for your people, you know? And so we want them to, like, manifesto is a word that gets a bad rap, because when you usually hear that word, it's like when a serial killer leaves one behind. Mm-hmm. They say like, hey, he killed 12 people and left a manifesto in his mom's basement or something like that, right? But we look at it in the positive sense. This is your mic drop. This is your moment. This is like, if you could say anything to the world about education, what do you want to say? And so we like people that have a manifesto inside of them. And what we do is help them free them to tell it and then give them a platform to spread it. And also creative control, intellectual property rights, plus a royalty structure that is fair for the fact that they're the one, is their ideas and they're out speaking, they're out doing these things. And like that was like how it all started for me. I got offered a publishing contract early on. I went straight up to my hotel. It was happening at a conference in Washington, D.C., an NCSS conference, National Council of Social Studies. And they sat in my session. They met me in the coffee shop of the hotel afterwards, and they offered me a publishing contract. I went straight up into my hotel room and I Googled publishing contracts because I thought they were trying to cheat me. And when I Googled publishing contracts, I came to find out that they're not trying to cheat me. Like that's exactly what they look like. And to me, the only thing missing was a ski mask and a gun. I was like, wait a second. Like, I'm going to write this book. It's my intellectual property. I'm going to travel around and speak about it. I'm going to build a social media platform. And you make how much money? And like, I make how much money? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me, right? And they wanted to take creative control of my project. They wanted to take out the edgy parts. They wanted to take out the rants, the overemphasis on standardized test, all these kind of things like this. And like, that was not the book I wanted to write, right? And so what I did with Dave Burgess Consulting is I took all the things that were bothering me about the traditional publishing world and tried to get rid of them. Take all the things that I loved about the self-publishing world, but get rid of all the things I hated about that and try to get rid of them. And like try to keep like the best of the traditional publishing world, the best of self-publishing, and try to create this hybrid model in the middle. And that's kind of hopefully what we've done, is where you get this royalty structure that's super author friendly. You get this intellectual property rights. You get all these different things, but you also have a platform and editor and like cover design. You also have all the traditional publishing stuff too.
And I think what you're saying here definitely shines through, because when I've seen in person present like George Couros, and I've seen Matt Miller. In fact, Matt Miller is going to be coming to Minnesota here in January, and I'll get a chance to see him again. And even Katie Martin and John Spencer, AJ Giuliani. I've seen all of them, present about content of their work. And I can tell that's authentically them. That is not something that they've had, the collar put on and the leash pulled back on them. Like, they're true to the messages that they put on paper, which I think is pretty awesome that they're able to do that underneath your umbrella, right?
Here's the thing. You could take a lot of education books today, you could spread them out on the table, and you could change the names on the bottom of them, and it wouldn't even matter because that person's not in that book. It's written third person, formal, academic, right? Mm-hmm. But if you take a look at our line of books, the idea of changing the name on the bottom of the book would be ridiculous. It'd be insane because our authors are inside of their books. If you see me speak and then you go to the back of the room and you buy the book, there's going to be it's going to be congruent. There's a match. You're going to hear my voice. When you're reading the book, you're going to be like, picturing me on the stage saying these things. Or if you read my book first, and you come to see me, you're going to feel like, oh my God, this is like the pop-up version of the book. Like this is crazy, mm-hmm. Right? And all these things are super important, and it's that weaving of that your personal voice. Even your stories might even be outside of education, but somehow influenced your message. Put it in the book. I had this conversation with George Couros, where like he was offered a contract, and they wanted him to write an EdTech book. He thought his message was bigger than just EdTech, right? And it wasn't about the tools, right? It was something that was larger. And he told me the story about like his father coming from immigrating from Greece to Canada and bringing give his family opportunity and all that kind of stuff like this. And I remember telling him, like, that's the start of your book right there. Like, you got to talk about your father. Well, a lot of companies would be like, what is this story about your father? Like, this is an education, like a professional development book. Like, they don't want to hear about your father. Everybody wants to hear about the father, mm-hmm. right? Everybody wants to hear that personal story. And so, if you'll see DBC books, sometimes you'll see this weird thing, like maybe people are reading them on the beach over the summer. Like, people don't read education books on the beach. They'll read one of our books on the beach because you feel like and then you go up and you meet someone at a conference, you can just act like you already know them because their voice and message was already woven through the pages of the book, that you already feel like you know them. And a lot of education books aren't like that, but we really do everything we can to try to make it feel like that.
And I can confirm, I was reading AI Optimism, Becky Keene's book, as I'm laying in a lounge chair beside the pool when my family was on vacation this last summer.
There we go. I love it.
Dave, I want to just move into the AI space a little bit as one of our last topics here before we get into the lightning round. Obviously, it's a huge topic.
Are you trying to tease the lightning round coming up here as like a big moment that we need to prepare for?
The lightning round is great. Yeah, got it. It's going to be good. But as far as the AI conversations go, it's a massive topic. There's a lot of talk about so much of what you've been talking about and your work it's very creative, and there's a lot of encouraging teacher voice into lesson building and all these opportunities for creativity. And one of the big concerns with AI, right, is it's the risk of losing your own personality or your own voice when you're using it. And for teachers and students, and really anybody who uses it, right, there's a risk there. So I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about that a little bit, and then also talk about what kind of, knowing your message, what kind of mindset do you think teachers coming into the field new should have to, if they're going to use AI, how can they maintain engagement with students? Maybe, AI offers more opportunities for them to spend more time on those teach like a pirate methods. But it's a kind of a two-part question. If you could talk a little bit about the risks of losing creativity, and how concerned you are about that, and then also just talking about new teachers coming into the field, maintaining engagement while also utilizing this technology.
Yeah. So on the creativity piece, I am less concerned about the loss of creativity, and I think like anything, it's not the tool, but it's how you use it, and the whether you're abusing the tool or whether you're using the tool, right? And so I think that AI offers unbelievable opportunities to actually spark creativity and to increase creativity. And again, it goes back to that, using it as a brainstorming partner. It's the greatest brainstormer in the history. It's amazing, right, what it can do. And it can do it so quickly, and it can spark. Now, if you're asking it for answers, and then you're just taking those answers and walking away with them, that's different, right? But if you're using it more as you're using your prompt to help it give you ideas and to maybe expand on your ideas, like, here's what I'm thinking, and like asking it to take it a step further and give you other things, I think that's an incredible opportunity. And then you really hit on another topic too, which is that I think that another primary use of AI is going to be take away some of the time that we used to spend on some very low-level type activities that now we're going to be able to do much quicker, and it's going to free up opportunities for us to spend more time as creators and artists and innovators, right? And so, I mean, I see this all the time in my work. Like if somebody asks me for, this is a very obvious answer that people talk about. It's kind of cliche, but like letters of recommendation. Like, oh my God, the amount of time I used to put into letters of recommendation and all that kind of stuff like this, it's the easiest thing in the world now, right? And I can still personalize it. I can still make sure that it fits this particular kid, but some of the heavy lifting is taken away from me, right? And that's more time that it can be spent lesson planning or creating or innovating or looking for new authors or whatever it might be. So I just put out a book by Rich Chiz that has some stuff to do with this. He put out a book called Autopilot. And kind of the tagline is like, are you running the school or is the school running you? It's for educational leaders. And it's about how to streamline workflow through creating systems, one of which incorporates, like some of that stuff incorporates AI. So how are you using AI to do some of that low level work, that more menial stuff that's just like really super time consuming? And then how are you using it as a brainstormer to actually spark creativity and to be more creative, as opposed to like taking that out of your hands? I'm not worried about AI and creativity at all. Actually, I am, as Becky would say, an AI optimist.
Great. Well, yeah, we'll start getting into our lightning round questions. These are meant to be, we do these at the end of our podcast, so they're meant to be fun questions. You could give one-word answers or whatever you feel is appropriate to answer the question the way that you want to. We're just going to go through them real quick and get your answer on some of these. So,
Jeremy, the pressure is on.
Yes.
Yep, in the hot seat.
Okay. So in the Dave Burgess cinematic universe, what is your walk-on playlist or hit when you take the stage? What are people listening to?
My walk-on song. Okay. So here is an intro to a song that gets me like if I was walking on stage and this was playing, like you would like, I'd be ready to burn that place down. Like it would be, and it's Moment of Clarity by Jay-Z. If you play the beginning of that song and you're not ready to go knock a wall down, like if you picture yourself walking on stage with that, oh my God. But now I have to add this. I would need The instrumental, because it would have a couple words in that intro that would not be appropriate for me to use while I'm walking on stage. So the instrumental opening of Moment of Clarity by Jay-Z, that's the one.
All right, great. From favorite pirate from books, movies, or pop culture, and what that pirate would be like as a classroom teacher.
So this is almost embarrassing because it's so, like, I feel like this is just like the cliche answer, but I mean, it's hard to go against Jack Sparrow. And how he would be as a teacher is like it would be utter chaos and a disaster, I have a feeling, but it would also be one of the more enjoyable classes the kids have ever been through in their life. And maybe there might be some people that thought that about my class too. But and I don't know if you guys know this, but a very strange thing happened to me. Sorry that I'm going to go outside of lightning and just tell you.
No, that's part of it. We just don't know where these stories will lead sometimes, you know?
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you something that to me is like the coolest thing in the world. And some people, like, I don't know, maybe other people will agree, but I got, it's been a little over a year now. I got an email and it said that I had been nominated for the International Pirate Hall of Fame. And when I got that email, I didn't even know there was an International Pirate Hall of Fame, right? And so I Googled, I thought someone was trying to prank me, right? And so I Googled, it's a real thing. And so I did all the paper, I filled out the paperwork stuff for the nomination and turned it all in. And I just waited like week after week after week waiting, and they were announcing them week by week. And so I am a 2023 inductee into the International Pirate Hall of Fame, which came out, that was released in 2024, but it's a 2023 inductee in International Pirate Hall of Fame. And other people that are in there, like people say, like, who else is in that? You know, like Johnny Depp is in the International Pirate Hall of Fame with me, and some of the other characters from Pirates of the Caribbean. Also, like Blackbeard, like real pirates, are in the International Pirate Hall of Fame. And also people like Robert Louis Stevenson, who wrote Treasure Island, is in the International Pirate Hall of Fame. And there's people that are like maybe do famous pirate music, like shanties and stuff like that, or reenactors, or people that have done pirate tourist like boats, like, you know, like for years and years and years. They have a whole industry of like pirate tourism and stuff like that. And so, yeah, so I'm in the International Pirate Hall of Fame. My only thing that I haven't decided yet is whether or not I should put it on my dating app. It might be a red flag. I don't know.
It could be.
Yeah. One thing about the Jack Sparrow thing is he might be trying to find rum all the time when he's supposed to be teaching, right?
Yeah, that could be a problem too. I'm a very odd. There's two things that make me an extraordinarily odd pirate. One is that I've never had a sip of alcohol in my entire life. It's just like this weird, crazy thing about me. I've never had one single sip of alcohol. So I am a completely sober pirate. And then the other thing is, and this is, see, you're getting like some scoop here, which I shouldn't share, but this is really embarrassing. But I have a real problem with getting seasick. So I'm a pirate who has a real problem with seasickness. That's embarrassing to say, but it's the truth.
Hey, there's room for all sorts of pirates everywhere.
That's right. Yep. I'm like a land pirate.
So Dave, if you could drop into any teacher's classroom in history, whether real or fictional, just for one day of co-teaching with that person, who would you pick and why?
Yeah, so this is a tough one. I'm going to give you an answer, not meant to be sentimental, but maybe it is. And so I'm going to say my father. And so my father has passed, but he was a professor at San Diego State University. He was a health science professor there. And I've heard stories about my father's class from people who've had him as students and stuff like that, but never one single time. I was pretty young when he was teaching there. I never saw my father teach. And so like, I've always been curious about like, what was his personality like in class? Is any of like what I do something that I would recognize in what he did, or what was that influence? And so I would love to co-teach with my father and see what his classroom was like at San Diego State University.
All right. The next one is, what's one lesson or stunt you tried that totally bombed, and what did you learn from it?
Oh my gosh, there's so many to choose from. That's, by the way, one of the things I say in my creativity workshop. I say, I can guarantee you I've had more disasters in my classroom than anyone sitting here. Not just lessons that weren't engaging. I've had those too. I'm talking disasters. Like I have been injured during lessons before. I've had students injured during lessons before. I've had to sit in my principal's office and explain why I had an open propane tank flame raging in the classroom. And I've had so many disasters in my classroom. I think that I'll tell you this one. I had a lesson on the Orson Welles in 1938. Got on the radio and had a little, like in the midst of another show, started to release news flashes as if they were real, that there was an alien invasion and the earth was being invaded. And it was so real for people that it created widespread panic. There's unbelievable stories about the panic that this created when Orson Welles did this on the radio. And I thought, this is amazing. What an incredible way to hook kids into like the power, like the 1930s, the power of the radio. We're going to talk about FDR and the fireside chats and what kind of impact like those fireside chats had, about the shows. Like people used to come home and watch the radio. Like as a family, you would watch, there were like shows, like we think of like drama, sitcom, thrillers, things like that. They're on the radio, right? And kids can't like understand that. So I was going to do this whole lesson around this War of the Worlds thing. And I had accessorized it to all this. And the centerpiece of my lesson was going to be playing them that original broadcast. And I had nothing but behavior management issues. I had the lights off, and there was the kids threw stuff in the room. There was people it was horrible. Sent the kids out. Next period came in, behavior management issues. Problem. Like I remember going to break and talking to my colleagues at break, and I was furious. Like, do you know how much time I spent into this? Like, I put the blah, blah, blah. And I was so furious. The next year, I'm a slow learner. I'm like, you know what? I just didn't do enough teach like a pirate strategies to it. Like this next year, I'm going to come dressed like an alien. I'm going to like have spaceship stuff all over the room. I'm going to have I had all these different things added to it that I like changed the whole room, that they're walking into this other world, right? Behavior management issues, problems, had to stop the lesson partway through a couple periods because of the problems that were happening, right? And then it hit me. The whole centerpiece of my lesson was bad. That radio show to today's kids, it's like pulling teeth. It's horrible. It's boring. Like they're not engaged by it. Like they didn't want to sit there on the ground and listen to this lesson in the dark, listen to this radio show in the dark. It's horrible, right? So despite all of the Teach Like a Pirate accessorizing of the lesson that I did, I had spoiled, like that, back to that barbecue analogy, I had spoiled meat. Like it doesn't matter what kind of marinade you put on it, the meat's spoiled. Like if your content is not good, it doesn't matter how you accessorize it. And by the way that I fixed that is the next year is what I did is have students create radio broadcasts. And I would tell them about how they used to have to make all their own sound effects in the studio. Like this was a true thing. Like they would be in the studio and the actors would have to make all the sound effects and do different things and like create the whole scene, right? And so I had a little office area that was a little behind a door. And then the kids would go into the office area as a group, their little group, and they would broadcast to the class their radio show. And we'd be in the class listening, and it was hilarious, fun, collaborative, creative. And so I took a lesson that was horrible that I thought I could accessorize to be something good. And when I empowered kids to be creators and innovators and to collaborate with each other, all of a sudden that lesson killed. And so it showed you that sometimes it's not about the Teach Like a Pirate hooks. Sometimes it's about letting kids collaborate, connect, and create and own their learning.
That sounds awesome. All right, Dave, I'm going to punt on the last one here and kind of pivot.
Yeah, you're like, man, these aren't very quick fire, dude.
Yeah, well, okay, here's the last one, Coach. And, it's halftime or, no, less than that. You're down 3 points, 2 points, and your team is just called timeout. You got the ball. What kind of an inbound play are you going to run in order to score that game-winning basket?
The most dangerous person on an inbound play is the person throwing the ball in. So I'm immediately going to be thinking about how I'm going to get a return. I'm going to have my best shooter inbounding the ball. He's going to get the ball in, and we're going to eventually try to run him off of a pick. Like they always forget about the inbounder. So I'm going to be trying to take advantage of the fact that the focus always goes to where the pass is, and the last person they're thinking about guarding is the person throwing the ball inbounds. So that's how we're going to get that last second three.
Sounds awesome. I think you won the game.
Yes, thank you. Now they have to execute, though. They have to hit it.
Yeah, there's still that.
I can get them in the right place. They got to hit the shot. It's kind of like teaching.
Well, Dave, we'd like to thank you for joining us. It's been great to listen to your adventures, over your years, and the expertise that you have and can offer teachers that are listening to the podcast, and to us as well. It's insightful for us to be able to chat with you. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you around at some point here too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.